YouTube. So this is a video response to Alex for his very special friend Diamond. And it's a video about the theoretical evolution of fire breathing. Now, people might have noticed already that I like to answer silly questions in a serious way and serious questions in a silly way. This, of course, is a silly question. And she asks, since all organisms are related and part of us came from lava, can something evolve that will breathe fire? Now, I do think that it certainly is possible for fire breathing to evolve, but it has nothing to do with us coming from lava, or lava having some sort of intrinsic hotness. We're not living in some crazy parallel universe governed by Aristotelian chemistry, where lava is made out of elementary fire particles. On an interesting side note, I did think more about Aristotle's ideas about the universe being made out of 4 elements, and I realised that he'd actually noticed the 4 states of matter. Fire being plasma, air being gas, water being liquid, and rock being solid. So anyway, no, lava doesn't have some form of intrinsic hotness. It's only that hot because it comes from so far beneath the ground, as would absolutely anything be if it came from that far below the ground as well. What Alex was getting at is that the lava will eventually solidify into rock, bacteria will break down some of the compounds in that rock, and then those compounds will be passed up the food chain in one form or another, and eventually become a part of us. So I'll just go over some basic chemistry for you, where atoms are made out of electrons, neutrons and protons, and it's the interactions of these particles that cause absolutely all of chemistry that we see around us. And the various atoms can act completely differently depending on what molecules they're in. So, for example, hydrogen could be part of water, as you see here. It could also be part of hydrogen cyanide or hydrochloric acid, which are extremely harmful to us, depending on how they're arranged within molecules. And the same is true for the lava, which Alex was talking about. The compound which it's in the rock could well be completely different to the state it is when it eventually becomes a part of us. I do now have a disagreement with Alex. I think that if fire breathing does evolve in vertebrates, it will be more likely to happen in reptiles. There's 2 reasons to this. Firstly, reptiles are extremely diverse and have been observed to evolve extremely rapidly, even evolving completely new structures in the course of a couple of decades. Links down in the description box to an article about that. A second reason is, of course, that fur and feathers don't particularly mix very well with fire, and when it comes to intermediate stages, I can see that being quite a considerable problem. So what could be the possible selective pressures for a creature evolving to learn to breathe fire? I'll go over what I consider to be the least plausible to the most plausible. Now, first off, the least probable, but probably the first one people would think of, is hunting, as you'd see from the traditional idea of dragons. Now, the problem with this is that it requires an extremely high energy cost, and I can't really think of many intermediate stages. Just being able to cause a slight burn to a prey wouldn't really be very beneficial to a creature, especially with such a high energy cost. Second selective pressure could be cooking. Again, this would be an extremely high energy cost, so it would only really be useful for either feeding the young, or possibly if they learnt to construct wooden fires and light them and cook their food that way. Again, this would just require too much of a high intelligence, and I can't really think of many intermediate stages. The third reason I can think of would be mating displays, where a male could breathe fire to attract the attention of a female, and of course the better ones at breathing fire would be the ones which are more than likely get the female reptile. However, again, I do think it's very unlikely that any intermediate stages would evolve with this. Now the fourth selected predator I could think of would be defence, and this I think is the most likely. Reptiles have an exceedingly wide range of novel defence methods, including poisons and venoms, detachable tails, colour changing, and even shooting blood out of their eyes. So some of these are extremely high energy cost as well, and judging by how crazy some of these are, I don't think that breathing fire is too much of an leap of the imagination, so it's this I'd like to speculate about. Now, fire requires three things: oxygen, heat, and fuel. First one, oxygen, is already covered, it's in the atmosphere all around us. Secondly, fuel. Now, there's plenty of combustible gases which are produced biologically as it is. Some of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head would be methane, ethanol, and hydrogen sulfate, which is produced in small quantities by humans and other animals as a signalling molecule. However, I think methane would be the most likely. Finally, heat. So all that's needed is for the animal to be able to fire a gas and produce enough heat to ignite it. I can think of three ways that this could possibly evolve. First one would be creating an electrical spark via a voltage gap. And there's plenty of creatures which have made use of electricity, such as electric eels and stingrays, for example. Another method would be combining two very reactive chemicals, such as what the bombard beetle does. The bombard beetle doesn't produce anywhere near enough heat to ignite methane, but I don't think that it's out of the question for such a thing to evolve. And the third method I could think of would be creating a spark by hitting two specialised teeth together. So here's what I think could be a fully functioning fire-breathing system. From the diagram you can see a normal digestive system, where the intestines lead to a specialised organ which generates lots of methane via bacteria. This has lots of muscular lining which can contract, firing the methane out of the mouth of the reptile, and then the reptile snaps two teeth together, which would create a spark and create a flame. So, how would this evolve? What would be the point of creating a spark with no fuel? And what would be the point of ejecting fuel at an attacker without any method of lighting it? Now, I do think that irreducible complexity is a complete pile of dog shit. However, of course, no complete evolutionary theory would be complete without being able to explain these intermediate stages. So firstly, stage one I think would be an extra intestine which loops back from the main one and out of the mouth of the lizard. The reason I could see this evolving as a defence method is that many animals will soil themselves, they'll piss and shit and fart when they're attacked, and the foul odour could well put the predator off. We see this quite a lot among mammals, and I've got no reason to believe this couldn't evolve among reptiles as well. Even humans will occasionally piss themselves when they're scared or fart when they're nervous. And of course, firing out a foul-smelling gas out of the mouth of the creature could well put an attacker off. Second stage then would be the starting of formation of a specialised organ in that extra intestine which will generate more methane. And this of course would be more likely to put off the attacker. A third stage would be teeth which randomly cause a slight spark. It wouldn't have to spark every time. Of course, the evolution of this gas would still put the predators off, but even if it only had a 1 in 100 chance of creating a fire, this would drastically increase the chance of scaring off any predator. And so then we get back to the final stage. The teeth have continued to specialise. The methane producing organ has continued to enlarge, and it's also developed a muscular lining so it can eject the gas at a faster speed. So that's it, full evolution of a fire-breathing system in a reptile. So comment, rate, subscribe, send me video responses, and I'll see you soon. Bye.